For episode 97 of Mom's Basement MMA. I wanted to go back into the local scene here in the Washington, D.C. greater vicinity, because that's where I live. And I had the fortune of talking to a really special person. Her name's Maya Stewart. She's a 145-pound amateur featherweight champion. Um, just a really, really cool gal to talk to. I learned a lot about her training at Kaizen MMA. She trains with some absolute killers, and it was really interesting, particularly to talk to her about her last bout. This was a bout that she went to Kentucky for, and she fought for the 145-pound strap. It was a tough fight against a very tough opponent, and the bout ended a little controversially. So I asked her about this fight. I asked her about also her background, her striking prowess, because that's one of the things that absolutely stood out to me. And I definitely wanted to know more about that and kind of what her plans were for 2022 and beyond. Please be sure to check her out. Her Instagram is included on the description for this video, so that's where you can find out more information about her. I also will have a link to the Mom's Basement MMA store, so if there are any, if there's any like hoodies or tank tops or anything like that that you might be interested in, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to include the link for the store there. So please check that out if you do have the means. As always, I am Charlie Clorox. Thanks for your time, Maya. Enjoy the show. Episode 97, Mom's Basement MMA. I am talking to Maya Stewart. She is a 145-pound amateur featherweight, and she trains out of Kaizen MMA in Falls Church, Virginia. Maya, I am so happy to talk to you. Local talent, have you right on my show. And anytime I get a chance to talk to somebody that competes in my neighborhood, I want to talk to them. And I get that chance to do that with you. How are you doing today? I hope that you are in a good mood because one of your teammates are fighting soon.
Absolutely. Look, I'm happy to see my teammates fighting. I'm happy about where I am right now in training and how everything's going. So yeah, I'm in a really good mood right now.
Let's talk about your gym. Let's talk about Kaizen MMA. This is a gym that I don't think a lot of people probably outside of our area really know a little bit about. As I have done this show and as I have learned a little bit more about the local scene and paid attention to the things that are happening in this area, holy crap, you guys have a lot of killers at your gym. Your boy Ahmet is fighting my boy Dre Miley. They're going to be on the main event. That's going to be a good fight. I'm looking forward to meeting Ahmet. I hope that he'll shake my hand. I hope he'll be cool with me. I hope he'll forgive me for being on the other side. But Dre's my friend, and I just hope I can shake both their hands after the end of the fight. He's a really tough, scary guy. He's very talented. His Muay Thai is on point. He's shredded. He can kick. He's patient. I like Ahmet quite a bit. He's very, very talented. You also have Sam Kilmer there. And then there's you, of course. But there's so many other people. Can you tell me a little bit about what is the philosophy behind your gym? Is there a certain discipline you guys are all really good at? Do you all come from different backgrounds? Tell me about just kind of what the vibe is like at your gym.
Yeah, so I actually got to the gym in 2019, which is way later than all of the, most of the other teammates have been there. Kaizen MMA's roots is in Enshin karate, and it's a traditional martial art, but Kaizen has evolved into, the standard MMA gym. And our head coach, Nima Mazzari, his philosophy is we all need to be good, not only with just striking, because our roots are in striking. He doesn't want us to settle as strikers. He wants us to be good at grappling and be well-rounded. So that's our philosophy at the gym. And we have high level grapplers and strikers at our gym. So it's really good because when I first started training, I was primarily a striker and I didn't really connect the grappling to my striking well. So it's really been great for our development as a team and for me as well.
If I had to describe your fighting style to somebody, I would say it's kind of difficult to do, but I would say that you are a striker. Like you don't have a problem throwing roundhouse kicks. You don't have a problem punching somebody up in the face or doing body shots. Like, but you're not reckless. Like you stalk your opponent, yes, but like you're not over aggressive. Like you're very calculated and you're very disciplined. I could see all these things. Your footwork's really good. They're like that. I think that's an important distinction because particularly at an AMI level, it's like, oh, I'm a striker, and then you'll see these guys like unkeg or throw these kicks, and it works until you fight a wrestler that catches your kick, and then what happens? Then you're screwed. I've seen you clinch against the cage. I've seen you on the ground a little bit, but you're really strong. You're really big, even for 45 at 5'8". I don't think most girls are as big as you. I think you have a definite size advantage going for you. Those are all the things that I see. Like you're the type of person that just in the first couple of minutes of every single one of your fights, I feel like you're fighting at a different level than everybody else. Can you talk a little bit about since being in the scene from 2017 to 2022, here we are. What else? Like you're a champion, you're the 145-pound champion. What else do you have to prove? Do you ever wonder at this level, like, are you going to keep getting like progressively more difficult fights because bodies have got to be hard to come by?
Yeah, definitely. As everyone knows, female divisions are pretty difficult as far as availability, especially, if you're 105 or 145 and above, So, but that's not a big concern for me. The reason I fight is to show my skill and to show what I've been learning, and I just want to go out there and have fun. I don't even this isn't even for money for me. Like that's not why I do it. It's just been a passion of mine ever since I was a kid. I always wanted to do this.
Well,
But
you're doing it, and you're doing it in at a level. You're performing at a level that I don't think most people really ever get to. Yes, there are a lot of people that have. I'm using this term in a relative sense. There are a lot of people that fight competitively, but they're hobbyists. They might take a couple fights, and then they kind of drop off the scene. We've been through a pandemic, and I know for a fact that the whole AMI scene and the DMV pretty much got shut down as a result of that. I know there would be more fights under your belt, and you might even be pro right now if it weren't for the pandemic. The thing that's really interesting is you fought Amanda Levy at Cagezilla 57. She's in the PFL now. That was a loss that's actually aged very well for you, if I do say so myself. You don't fight again for almost a year and a half. And so for that year and a half gap, like number one, how did you not go crazy? And number two, like when you finally, after everything started opening up and you knew that you had an opponent to prepare for, how excited were you to make that walk after a year and a half break?
to be honest, I was completely nervous. So first of all, the reason that whole break happened was because in October 2019, I had a fight scheduled and it fell through. And then of course the pandemic came right after. So yeah, 2021, I had that fight in January, and I was coming off of that loss to Amanda, and I didn't really have much perspective because of that loss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, am I getting better? I don't know. I haven't competed in a while. Let's see what happens. So my focus for that fight versus Sarah was to just relax and have fun, because you have no idea how nervous I was before that fight. Yeah, I didn't know where to gauge my skill. I didn't know where I stood, against the other women.
Debated topic in MMA. There are some fighters that think ring rust is like a figment of the imagination. There are other fighters that are like, no, like it really is a real thing. Like, where are you in that conversation?
Oh, it's definitely real. You need you have to keep active in some way or another, even if it's like grappling matches or a smoker or something. You really need to have that, time in the cage.
You went in there and you fought Sarah Cook, and that was a fight that I believe you won convincingly. She is tough, she is strong, but when I watched that fight, it was like you took things out of her, like those strikes that you were able to put on Cook. They started taking their toll on her. Like, she's tough, she's strong. I think there are a lot of other girls that probably would have quit. Were you kind of surprised that she was able to take as many of the strikes that you were like throwing out on her? Because that was the thing that stood out to me about Sarah, is she's tough.
Yeah, I was not surprised. I knew she was gonna be like that. When I when I shook her hand before the weigh-ins, like I felt her hand and she was very strong, like just from the handshake. So I was like, oh, she's gonna be pretty tough. Yeah.
When I looked at that fight and when I look at you, you come across, you have this like energy about you when you're in the cage. Like, you look like a big kid who's just having fun out there every single time. And the commentators pick up on that. They're just like, look at her energy. She's smiling. She's having like a really good time out there. You look happy. Like, when you're out there, when you're competing, you look like a pig in shit. Like, you just look so happy and so like thrilled to be part of that moment. Can you talk a little bit about everything that leads up to this? So what I specifically mean is, for your camps, there's a lot of things that you're doing behind the scenes that a lot of people just don't know about. It's the weight cutting, it's the diet, and it is the grueling hours that you probably have to maintain in order to do this. You're an AMI, so you're not getting paid for all this. You have to do other things to keep your lights on, but you also have a full-time job, which is being a fighter. That in and of itself is a full-time job. When you're in a typical fight camp, what are some of the sacrifices that you're making in order to compete at the level that you're competing at?
So number one, I know people have the idea of having a fight camp, where they're preparing for a fight, but I treat training as, an all year round thing. So I I don't do much different in those months leading up to the fight. It is difficult balancing, work life versus MMA life, but I've managed to find, some middle ground over the years, manage my schedule a little better. As far as diet goes, hmm, diet has been something that's not very difficult for me
Mhm.
because back when, let's see, when I turned like 21 or so, I became very involved in like health and fitness. I began lifting and I got into like the powerlifting scene, and diet was something that I felt was the most important aspect of your health. So that actually isn't difficult for me. I hate the water cuts, but but yeah, aside from that, training is as hard as you make it. So
Sure.
I like training smart as opposed to hard, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. So you talked about lifting weights, and for people who haven't seen you, you're pretty jacked. And I have to tell you, do you have to like chill out on the weightlifting sometimes? Like, do you get like too like muscular, and like, is making 45 difficult at times because of that?
No, so I do look big in photos when I don't have a shirt on, but if you do see me in person, I actually look pretty skinny.
Okay.
I do, yeah. But I mean, I'm naturally small framed, but as far as the lifting goes, I my focus is strength and not build.
Got it.
So yeah, I'm a dense person, but I'm not huge.
Gotcha. One of the
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that's interesting about you stylistically is Kaizen MMA striker gym. Like, that's, whether that's an exaggeration or not, because you already talked about people that are from all walks of life that go there, but it's probably associated with being a striking gym. One of the interesting things, like when you look at MMA for the very highest level and you look at all the champions, an overwhelming majority of them are all wrestlers. Do you think that when people are called being a striker, like it's not really meant as a compliment anymore, and it's kind of meant like, oh, we call you that because you don't have ground game, we call you that because we're going to take you down and we're going to ragdoll you. I feel like a lot of times strikers in particular, like they get that, right? Like they kind of like get that reputation, like, oh, well, you have to strike because you can't do anything else. Well, last night we saw a battle of two of the highest level strikers. And when you
Yeah.
see Israel Adesanya, his takedown defense was fantastic. You saw how strong he was when he did get takedown. Like there are a lot of things about his game, about his ground game, about his clinch game that people don't talk about because it doesn't captivate them. His striking is what does. So can you talk a little bit, Maya, about like, do you ever feel like you're pigeonholed because of you being a quote unquote striker? And do you feel that people sleep on your grappling abilities and your jiu-jitsu abilities because of that?
I don't think so. I think today we're moving away from that stigma as a striker because right now most strikers have to have high level grappling if they're in the UFC or Bellator or whatever it is. So I don't think people are sleeping on my grappling ability. I noticed in the past couple of fights, people weren't really trying to initiate grappling with me. So
Mhm.
that shows that they have some type of respect for my
That
grappling.
was one of the things that I always like kind of look out for. And when I look at MMA at the very highest level, I'm just like, okay, like, and I say this as like a big Kevin Holland fan. I love Kevin Holland. I think he's funny. I like watching him fight. I like how he talks shit to people. I
Yeah.
like Kevin Holland is the type of guy that can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned. I really like him. We saw a couple of his fights don't go his way, and all of a sudden people forget about how good of a striker he is, and people immediately want to talk about, well, he doesn't have any ground game, he's deficient here, he's going to get ragdolled. And now I'm really interested to see like what the next version of Kevin Holland's going to look like, because there was some guy who said that he was trash, he had no grappling skills whatsoever, and Kevin Holland was like, okay, pull up then, and the kid did, and Kevin Holland choked him
Yeah,
out.
absolutely. Like
And
people don't understand there are like levels to grappling
right,
because there are these guys that have been grappling since they were like little kids. And if you have that experience behind you, it's hard for someone who's new to grappling to reach that level. So you have to, yeah, you have to focus on having that MMA style grappling if you're a striker.
your most recent fight was incredible. I was exhausted watching the fight. It ends controversially. The woman that you were fighting, Cheyenne Hall, she is not a buster. Like, she's good. I've heard of her. I've heard of her before. I know that she's got a few years on you, and she's got a comparable amount of fights under her belt. But she's since gone on since your most recent bout. She's gone on to win her most recent fight, and she'll be fighting again this upcoming weekend. That was, I feel, probably the biggest test that you've had up to date,
Yeah.
beside Levy. That she was a really tough girl, and you got yourself in a firefight. You really did. Can you talk about, when you look at the Hall fight today, Maya? Like, what are you happy with? Like, what are things that you did that you're happy with, and what are some things that when you look at this fight now, when you look at things in retrospect, you're like, oh man, like there's certain parts of my game I want to work on, or I probably would approach her differently today if I had to run it back with her. What were your thoughts on that one?
Wow. I have so many thoughts on that fight. You
All
have no
right.
idea. Of course, with the controversy at the end and so on. But as far as learning from the fight, I saw some things that I need to work on from the fight, and that I really appreciate having that opportunity to look back and see those things. As far as my approach to fighting her, I think my biggest hindrance was my mental state
Mm-hmm.
at the time. I do have a thing where I'm afraid to lose sometimes. It can create a lot of nervousness.
Yeah.
And you did see in my fight that I did have a little nervous energy. I made a couple mistakes sometimes. But in the end, I was able to gather myself when my corner began to encourage me. I kind of gathered my senses and I said, okay, I need to go forward and I need to attack now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how that fourth round came about. She got the hematoma in the third round after I threw a right hand to her face. And when I saw that she got that damage, I was like, wow, I really need to move in now because she's probably not liking it, and she'll probably slow down after this. So
Did you
Uh,
feel a sense of urgency, Maya? Like when you are sitting on your stool in between the rounds and when your coaches are talking to you and telling you what they'd like to see, did they tell you if they like how they saw the fight going down? Like, did you get the sense that you may have been down on the cards and you may have needed to finish her? Or like, can you walk me through kind of like what your mindset was like prior to that injury happening?
Absolutely. Uh, so anytime I get hit at all, I always think I'm down for some reason, like I'm down on
Mm-hmm.
the round.
Yeah.
So when after those first three rounds, after she pretty much punched me in the face the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, I definitely have to go for this finish. I have to stop being so cautious because it's not going to win me the fight. Um, but I really needed that encouragement from my corner. So after the third round, my corner said, I need to see a jab more,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to see you go for the finish, and I need to see that right hand.
Okay.
So
Was
I
there
came out, and after I landed a few of the jabs on her, I got a lot of confidence, like, oh, I can touch her. And then that's when I went forward.
one of the interest like one of the questions I've always wanted to ask a fighter is like, and I feel like I could ask this question of you because you tell me honestly. I don't think every fighter would. Do you ever get to a point like you're in the cage with somebody and something happens you didn't expect? Like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, they kick a lot freaking harder than I thought they would kick, or this
Mm-hmm.
girl's a lot stronger than what I thought she would be. I'm always curious, and sometimes fighters, like we all have our own tells. You can tell when some fighters are taken surprise because they may have underestimated somebody. Has anything like that ever happened at any point in your prior fights where you look back and you're like, man, that girl hit like a truck. I was not expecting that. Or the other way around, like, wow, I thought this girl was going to be like the Incredible Hulk, and like her punches like didn't even hurt me.
I always overestimate my opponent. And
That's a good thing,
I
I
think
think.
that's a safe thing to
Yeah,
do because, like, yeah, it's sometimes it's harmful because you don't want to move forward because you think too highly of them. So I don't like it in that aspect, but I'd rather be more cautious than reckless. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Uh, yeah. So, not that I'm not saying that my opponents aren't skilled, but I definitely overestimate this
Well,
one.
it's probably normal because it's a person that lives in your brain all through training camp. Every single
Yeah.
time somebody's eating a delicious hamburger and you can't eat it, like I would immediately think of like, God damn you, Cheyenne Hall. Like that would be the first thing in my head because right, because I'm petty like that. I'd be like, man, I want ice cream too. I like good, delicious foods and I have to eat lawn clippings and drink water. This sucks. This is your fault, Cheyenne. I'm gonna make you pay for it. Like I am petty like that. That is a world and that is like an inside view into like my delusional head up here. But you fight Cheyenne, and I think she's very skilled. It became a striking battle. This is somewhat of a controversial thing for me to say, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. I
Yeah.
wondered if she had a fractured orbital and if it was just, or if it was just the hematoma. That looked really nasty. For people who haven't seen this fight that we're referring to, I'm going to link it in the description of this video. Definitely check it out. Hall sustained some serious damage on the side of her face. The commentators, if you listen to them, they're kind of aghast that the fight's called. I respect what the corner. I respect their decision in this. This is an Amy fight. For an Amy fight, I'm not gonna like let my fighter like I'm not gonna risk my fighter's long term health. I thought they did a good job looking out for her. It probably wasn't the way that you wanted to win, Maya, but
No,
if the tables were turned and you were in that predicament, like looking back on it, if you're
absolutely.
objective, you'd probably look at that and be like, wow, you guys actually did me a solid by pulling me. What were your thoughts? Like when everything like that happened, you saw the towel come in, the fight stops. Are you trying to like think to yourself, like, did I do something wrong? Did I get disqualified? What the hell is happening? Like, tell me what was
I
going through
was
your head.
like, I was like, what is going on right now? I was so confused. The doctor did come in and check Cheyenne's face, I think after the third round.
Right.
And I think he gave her the okay to continue. And I don't think her corner was pleased with his decision, you know. So I think that's kind of what fueled the towel throw in. But I didn't see the towel. So I'm just like,
You
so I'm
wouldn't,
just
because
fighting.
you're paying attention to other things. You're not going to pay
Right.
attention to that.
And Cheyenne didn't see it either. And
Mhm.
she's looking around and she's like, I'm good. What's going on? And but yeah, I think they made a good decision. They were concerned about her, and I would want my corner to do the same thing for me. So
It's not like she's losing half of her pay. It was an Amy fight. Live to fight another day. I thought it was prudent. And every single time at an Amy level, I'm definitely going to do that. Like if it were my fighter out there and I were a coach, I would there's
yeah.
no way in hell I would risk my fighter's long-term health like that. No, it's not going to happen. I thought the
And to be
reason,
completely honest, like everyone saw her fight and everyone saw that she did great in the first 3 rounds
Mhm.
anyway. So it's not like she had anything to prove after that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. The reason why I bring up the whole weird stoppage is because the prior fight got stopped weird too. I thought like Cook was getting knocked out. A ref said that you were donkey punching her, but you weren't. Like you were not hitting her at all in the back of the head.
Oh, I
Uh,
have to clear that up. I have to clear that up. So I was not aiming for the back of her head. So I'm punching to the side like this, right? But what happened, as she's covering her head, she slowly turned her head this way. And of course I could not see that because I had my head on
right.
her and I'm punching her this way. So that's how that happened, but that was not intentional
I
at
thought it
all.
was
And she
clean.
knows
I didn't have a problem
yeah.
with it. I certainly wouldn't have stood you up because of that.
Yeah. So I mean, she knows I did not intend, but I did not see her turn her head like this.
Well, your opponent shouldn't be making weird decisions like that. I thought it was fine. I didn't have a problem with it personally. You weren't being malicious. You were doing what you're trying to do. I thought it was weird, but hey, at the end of the day, it didn't. It's not like it came back at you. You still got the decision at the end of the day. I would have liked to have seen the TKO. I thought you deserved it. Anytime you can put your opponent in a compromised position like that, I'm not a fan of like robbing fighters of TKOs like that. I thought you did enough to get one. And when I saw the ref stand you guys up, I was like, oh, he called the fight. But he didn't. He was like
Yeah.
he was yelling at you for like punching her in the back of the head. One of the questions that when I look at 2022 I'm sorry, 2021, you fought in the winter and then you fought again in the spring and then you didn't fight again.
Yeah.
You took some time off. Was that intentional? Did you get an injury? Like what happened with the rest of your 2021?
Right. It was not intentional at all. After the Cheyenne Hall fight, I did get a minor injury, but it only needed like a month to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started looking for fights after that. And then that's when my coach told me in August, hey, I want you to make your pro debut.
Okay.
So we're gonna try and put you on a card in November. And I'm like, great, let's go. Um, at the end of August, I sustained an injury. And I mean, I'm not going to go into specifics, but I did sustain an injury and I was expecting it to heal by November,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't. And actually, it just now healed like last week. So I
Got
got the
it.
okay. Yeah, I just got the okay from my doctor to resume normal activities. Um, so
Well,
now we're looking for it. Yeah.
that's exciting for you. So, are you going to take another Amy fight, or are we looking for the right professional fight now?
Oh no, we're looking for a pro debut now.
That's exciting, and I hope you debut in this area because I would definitely want to go and see your fight. When you think about what you would like to accomplish the rest of 2022, is the idea like, okay, I want to make my debut in 2022 and then like fight locally? Like what are some of the conversations that you have with your coach? I ask this question for this reason. We're in the pandemic's still going on. Fights are still getting canceled all the time. When I looked at that last Invicta card that just happened, they're pulling girls that are making their pro debuts and they're throwing them on Invicta cards. I don't think it's unrealistic, particularly in your weight class at 45, to get a call at one of those promotions because finding girls that can make 45 that are big enough for that class, it's always a problem. So, like, what are your thoughts? Like, are you kind of like wide open to everything? Like what are some of the conversations you have with your coaches about what you would like to do in 2022?
Mhm. So our conversations on that died down a little after the injury
Mhm.
because of course I wasn't able to fight. But um, as far as my intentions, I'll take I'll take whatever offer I can get for my pro debut. But after that, I will be seeking larger promotions such as Invicta or Bellator or etc. Um, that's my intent. But my coach is out of town right now. When he comes back, we're gonna have that conversation.
I want to see that happen for you. You've put in your time. You've been doing this a long time. You've been competing on the amateur scene since 2017. Here we are. It's 2022 now, and you're still young enough where I wouldn't say you're in your athletic prime quite yet. I think you got another couple of years to go before you reach that level. So you're a good example of somebody who's taken their career with a prudent approach. There's so many people that rush in and they get in over their head and they're not ready for it. And then it's like, well, it's like a tattoo at this point. Every loss you take, like add one more because it's not going away. You
Yeah.
still are, you're in an exciting position. You've been very prudent with this. And I think now you're ready to go pro. And I'm glad that you said that because on an AMI level, I just was starting to get concerned for somebody who's been competing in the area for as long as you have, getting quality opponents. That's going to get more and more difficult, and
Yeah.
finding the right matchup is going to get more and more difficult too. With you going pro, I feel like you have a lot more windows of opportunity to take advantage of.
Yeah. Opens the doors.
Okay, cool. So 145 title fight, Invicta. It's going to happen. I'll call Shannon. I'm going to let her know, and we're just going to start shooting our shot. I will do that for you because I support my local fighters. I really like talking to you this afternoon, and I know that you have a lot of people in your corner. I know that you have a lot of people that you would like to probably shout out. I want to give you that opportunity to do that before I let you go.
Yep. Huge thanks to Kaizen MMA, head coach Nima Bazari, Najim Wali, all of the coaches that I've worked with. Also, some of my guys will be fighting soon. Watch Ahmet Karatli and a couple other of our guys, Matthew Booker, on Rocky Combat Sports 8, which is coming up on February 19th. And yep.
Well, hey,
That's about it.
I will be there. You can't miss me. I'm looking forward to that as well. The link to Maya's Instagram page and her gym they're both going to be on the description for this video. Make sure you check that out, and we will run it back soon. Miss Stewart, thank you for being here.